Welcome to HAE Invites, the podcast from Harvard alumni entrepreneurs featuring inspirational conversations with exceptional entrepreneurs and innovators about the strategies they used, the lessons they learned, and what makes them stand out.
Good day from Paris, and welcome to Harvard Alumni Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature inspirational conversations with exceptional entrepreneurs and innovators. My name is Philip Borino, and I'll be your host today. Black Monday, 9/11, the financial crisis of 2007, and now the COVID-induced crisis of 2020. The world has seen its fair share of disruptions over the past few decades. But amidst these crises have arisen opportunities for turnaround and reinvention. To discuss his experience, I'm honored to be joined today by Mark Watson. Mark E. Watson III is an entrepreneur who has been investing in innovative companies and growing businesses for over 3 decades. In 1998, he founded Aquila Capital Partners to back transformational companies. Among his early investments was Argo Group in the specialty underwriting sector. When Watson became CEO of Argo in 2000, it was a regional $300 million underwriter nearing insolvency. In 2019, Watson left Argo as a thriving public company with $3 billion in revenue, clients in 60 countries, and thousands of new jobs created. Today, Watson is fully dedicated to Aquila, investing in promising entrepreneurs who will shape the world for generations to come. Mark, welcome to Harvard Alumni Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Thanks, Philip.
So, Mark, just to start off, so shortly after you started your investment firm, Aquila, in 1998 to invest in innovative companies, you became CEO of Argo, and you spent 20 years building a company, taking it from a $300 million regional business to one that was thriving $3 billion in revenue in over 60 countries. As an investor, what led you to become CEO of Argo?
Well, I didn't initially intend to invest in Argo. I was really focused on helping entrepreneurs, and I was thinking about small businesses grow their businesses by providing both intellectual and financial capital. But in the process of getting going, I came across Argo, and it on a larger scale fit my investment criteria. And I was familiar with the insurance space. So I invested in the company and I joined the board shortly thereafter. And I thought that I had a pretty good idea of how to transform the company into a specialty underwriter, having done that once before. So I started giving advice and trying to create a vision that the board could follow. And the board then asked me to come join it. And about a year later, they convinced me to come be the CEO and turn some of those ideas into reality. And I have to say, at the time that I agreed to do that, at the time that I invested in the company, I never intended to be the CEO. And I certainly didn't think that would last for a 20-year journey. But every time I thought we would kind of get to the point where I could kind of look around, we'd see the next opportunity. So we just kept investing in the future. It's actually pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you grow a company from insolvency to a $3 billion multinational? And what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. When I invested in the company, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't really appreciate just how challenging the financial environment was for insurance companies back then. You mentioned in your intro about 9/11, and I'll come back to that in a second. But the good news about the company is that it had been around for over 50 years. It had just celebrated its 50th anniversary, and so it had a brand. And at the time, it was called Argonaut Insurance Company. We evolved it into Argo as it became more of a global business. We found that it's easier to say Argo in Chinese than Argonaut and a few other languages, but there are some more reasons behind that.
In French, it could be Argonaut, right? It's something like that, right?
Well, that's right. Actually, it's not so hard to say Argonaut in French, but two syllable words seem to work very well as
They do.
brands these days.
They do. They do.
And but the main idea back then was to really kind of evolve the company into a specialty underwriter instead of just being a Main Street insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that my experience with other specialty companies would help us kind of figure out a path to get there. And the goal at the time wasn't to kind of rebuild a multi-billion-dollar business per se, but rather to build a market leader. But things don't always go according to plan. And to go back to 9/11 for a minute, that was a really seminal moment in the world economy, the U.S. economy, and the insurance industry in particular. And so on the one hand, it if you were still standing, then it gave you a chance. If you still had a balance sheet and you could play through, it gave you a great market opportunity, while many of your competitors who were less well capitalized fell by the wayside. We had kind of recharged our balance sheet a little bit by then. But what was interesting is that in our industry, it became much more globalized in how businesses, particularly larger businesses, wanted to place or transfer their risk, and they wanted to do it much more on a global basis. And so that was kind of a real wake up that we had finally just started evolving to our definition of a specialty company in the US. And what we realized is that as the environment changed and our customers' needs changed, that we needed to change as well. And I guess one other thing worth pointing out is, during this period of time, we grew the company quite a bit in the beginning from a series of acquisitions that allowed us to create this global platform to assume risk. And really the last 10 years has been focused on organic growth while changing gears along the way.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about organic model versus an acquisition model as a way to grow the company, and what different skill sets are required for each.
Well, they're really, they're as you would appreciate, they're really different. M&A is much more of a project management mindset. And, there's a beginning and an end. Whereas organic growth, on the other hand, is much more of creating ongoing processes that evolve over time as you continue to innovate. And the challenge when you have a company that's growing so quickly is it's one thing to be really good at M&A. It's another thing to be really good at process. And people who are good at one tend to not be good at another.
Mm-hmm.
And we had built the company so quickly. We'd gone from 300 million in premium to over $1 billion in premium in only a few years' time. And again, a lot of that was acquisition driven. And I remember I was fortunate enough early on in my tenure at Argo to meet Ram Charan, a HBS grad, member of the faculty, but I think most people know of Ram from many of the books that he's written, including the book that he wrote called Execution that he co-authored with Larry Bossidy. And I had a chance to meet Ram right after he wrote the book. And so here I am, this young guy in my 30s trying to figure everything out. And I said, please help. And of all the things that he's shared with me over the years, the thing that always stuck in my mind back in the beginning of my relationship with him was this recognition that as the environment evolves, you've got to evolve your company with it. And I said, yep, I got that. This is what we've been doing. But the people that are capable of running that business, they probably change over time too. And I said, yep, I think I got that. But if I kind of go back to the beginning and look through those 20 years, we reinvented the company probably 3 times, and we're working on our 4th with the digitization of the company most recently. And the team that I left when I retired from Argo last year, the team that I left behind was very different than the team from the beginning. Very different skill sets, much more focused on innovation and driving process improvement and digitizing the business. Whereas in the beginning, we were just buying one business after another.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so, just in general, how did you decide to become an investor and an entrepreneur? Is that how you started your career?
No, I actually started my career. I started my career as a lawyer in New York City. After the crash of '87, I thought, before the crash of '87, I thought for sure that I was going to go and become an investment banker. I had been offered a role at First Boston in the energy team's Houston office, but after the crash of '87, there were no jobs on the street, and there certainly were no energy jobs. But as a boy, I started out as an investor, and it's kind of funny. Believe it or not, when I was 11, I bought my first stock, the Walt Disney Company, for just a few $100s, and I'm happy to say I still own it today.
Wow.
And it taught me early on that there's more than one way to earn a return on your money. And when I was watching the value of that Disney stock go up faster than the value in my savings account, I thought, there's something going on here. But I, how like you say, sometimes you say you learn things from osmosis. Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up with a grandfather who was a wildcatter exploring the oil fields of West Texas. And I also grew up with a father as a serial entrepreneur. And so you can imagine how some of those discussions went at the dinner table. And, you learn from those guys. Let me tell you what, both of those businesses are boom and bust, and you learn a lot of ups and downs. But, as I was saying a second ago, I didn't appreciate how much I learned from those guys just through osmosis of being around them and working for them off and on when I was young and in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I would also say that maybe I've been thinking about investing for a long time because I started a few businesses before I ever graduated from school. But over the last 25 years, I've really focused more on helping entrepreneurs start businesses, and as respects Argo, really scaling some of the different portfolio companies within Argo and turning them into market leaders. And probably the last thing that I would say is, and M&A has been a pretty big part of that.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the discussion of crises, from September 11th that you mentioned to the crisis of 2008, and then recently with COVID-19, what is your view of challenges and opportunities in times of crisis?
Well, I think it comes back to something that I was saying earlier, which is that you always have to be aware of your environment so that you can anticipate what's coming next and be able to react to it. And you also have to make sure that your company is in a solid position. Mm-hmm. And kind of the buzzwords that you hear on the street right now are everyone talking about having a fortress balance sheet. Well, yes, I think, but I think all well-run businesses have focused on having a strong balance sheet over time with a good business model and a team that can help you execute that model, so that as if I go back to what I was saying earlier during 9/11, it's a time where you can hopefully thrive and move ahead of your competitors. In fact, there are a few strategy professors at HBS that refer to it as leapfrogging the competition. So if you've been saving for a rainy day, so to speak, it's your time to get ahead of the competition. For example, you can pivot, become more digital, acquire weaker competitors. And you also have to listen to your clients and their shifting needs because, of course, they're trying to react to the environment that they're in as well. And I think that's kind of what allowed us for years at Argo to keep evolving so quickly, is that we had a really good sense for our clients' needs. And as the environment changed, we could take advantage of that. But let me give you an example of what's going on today. So with the environment changing from COVID, businesses are having to decide, do they want to preserve cash, or do they see this as an opportunity to really help their clients who are in need? And if I just look at a few of the portfolio companies of Aquila as an example, there's one in particular, a company called Union POS. It's a software company that's got cutting edge technology in the hospitality industry. And they've actually decided to double down and really focus on providing more functionality and more service to their clients. And it's really starting to pay off. And in the last few weeks, you can start to see them taking more market share from the competition, which of course has encouraged them to think of even better ways to provide more functionality, more products for their clients. And I think you'll see them start to pull away in the next few months from some of their more conservative competitors that are just trying to preserve cash.
And so what other types of firms do you invest in?
Yeah, so while Aquila's been around for 20 years, I'm kind of in reboot mode at the moment, but it's the same business thesis today as it was when I first started it back in '98, and that is that there are a lot of CEOs that need capital for their businesses, both financial and intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've learned anything over the last 20 years, it's one skill set to go from $0 to $10 million in revenue. It's another skill set to go from 10 to 50, or really from 50, to 100. And then of course, scaling businesses from 500 million to $1 billion is a whole different thing. And so I've really enjoyed being an investor and or board member in many of the companies that I've become involved with over time, and helping the CEOs and their teams along that journey as they go from small, medium to larger business. And so my goal has been to find businesses where the CEO and the team they figured out the product and maybe their go-to-market strategy, but not necessarily how their environment changes or how their competitors are going to react to them. And so I'm helping CEOs with kind of their second and third iteration of their business models as they're trying to scale. And we've mainly been helping companies in fintech, AI, SaaS, hospitality, digital consumer goods. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's mainly just been finance and tech.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's and I think it's very important that what you mentioned, that it's more than just capital. It's also help with strategy, the definition, understanding how to scale, what the best opportunities are. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. So your career has been really successful, and you've had to overcome many challenges. Do you have any closing thoughts, or maybe one last piece of advice for budding entrepreneurs?
Sure. And it kind of goes back to the beginning, which is observe your environment. I've mentioned a couple of times how important this is. And it's not just what your competitors are up to, but what your clients' needs are, and just taking in the environment as a whole, because it changes every day. And over time, you've got to change your business to suit the environment. And another thing that I would say along the way that's really helped me a lot is continuous learning. When I was first getting going, I joined a group called YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization.
Yeah.
And the motto of YPO is better presidents through education and idea exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And another great source of learning for me has been going to HBS every year through the program that they do for YPO. I learned something new every year. And I have to say that having gone to that program for, I think, 15 years now, that's quite a while, it really helped me evolve Argo into the leader in the specialty insurance business that it is. Let me just, there's one more thing I want to say, because I think it really matters a lot. And that is that, first of all, don't ever stop learning, but learning is one thing and applying what you've learned is another. And someone that I respect a lot said to me the other day, you can learn all you want, but if you don't spend time applying it to yourself and your business, then you've wasted it.
Sure. Yeah.
And so the point is, learning is great, but if you can't take those things and then embed them into how you run your business, then it's kind of wasted learning. And so just be really sure to think about how to apply your learning to your business.
That's great. That's very true. But thank you, Mark, for your time and all of your insights today. I wish you continued success with Aquila, and thanks again for joining us.
It was a real pleasure. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the HAE Invites podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.